It's a beautiful morning right here at High Impact Television, and I am here to bring the newspaper review to you this morning. My name is Esther Kalu, and as we know, if you're just watching for the first time, I would like to reiterate that on the newspaper review, we talk about papers, we talk about stories that have made the headlines on the papers and across Nigeria. We move to Kenya and then to UAE and then the Times UK and Washington Post. This morning, we'll bring to you stories that have made the headlines on The Punch, The Vanguard, The Guardian newspapers in Nigeria, and Standard and Star newspaper in Kenya, the College Times in the UAE, Times UK, and Washington Post as well. And now I am being joined by Ayobayo Babade, a legal practitioner. Thank you for joining us on the review this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, quite some stories we have here today.
Yeah.
Emotional stories, painful stories, starting with what happened in Lagos State. If you're a resident of Lagos State, you understand that traffic is part of the city, it's part of the system.
Yeah.
And just at 10:30 p.m., we have this report of a tanker that exploded, a leaking tanker. How did you take that story? I mean, just try to imagine that you're driving on that path. You are maybe at the traffic light and you're waiting to, just drive by. Yeah,
it's a very sad and unfortunate incident. And the three bodies that were found and many other people or properties that may have been affected are equally there. So it's a very sad one. And it's one too many. My office, for example, is close to Otedola Bridge. And so whenever one is passing that one bridge that's notorious for a number of tanker explosions. Yeah. And so it's one too many issues. And there's almost no day you're passing by, you're seeing a tanker that is rickety, a tanker that is shaking, a tanker that is sounding, a tanker that is... And so right now, when you're at that bridge, whenever you say a tanker, you almost move miles away. But still, how can you be a citizen when you're even in fear? So, and one thing is that there is every vehicle should be roadworthy before being on the road. Yeah. And so even these tankers have to be roadworthy before being put on the road. But the challenge we have is that most of these tankers often move at night. And so most of the officials that are meant to inspect or check those vehicles would have been out of the road.
But on the flip side, we felt like them moving at night means that we are going to have less, victims or less people being affected.
True. That was the rationale behind it. That so they move at night so that most people will be off the road. But like you said, Lagos is a very interesting city. Yeah. Sometimes you could, if you're moving from the mainland island to the mainland, for example, you can spend 6 hours on the road. Yep. The times I've left Lake Ovia as early as 5, 6, you don't get to Bega until around 9, 10. So that's the nature of Lagos traffic. And so you find people still being outside even at that time of the night. But not much more than just them being outside is for the vehicles conveying these things to be roadworthy. That's one. Then two is the need to look at, should we keep on carrying those vehicles on the road? It's high time for us to make sure that our transport system becomes more effective, that we have a more effective rail system that conveys a large number of these things in through other channels as opposed to those tankers moving on the road. So we need to look at it from a broader perspective to see what are the measures we can put in place to ensure that the roads are safer for the average Nigerian on the road. Okay,
I'm glad you mentioned rail as a system that we can use to avert some of these issues. Exactly. So that if we have this kind of liquid on the road, on our rail systems rather, we have people safe on the road.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, another story is something that has to do with abduction.
Yeah.
And it is funny that the same day we are having a report from troops foiling an attack in Gongon is the same day we are having a report of an abduction. And in Kebbi State, a federal government school in Kebbi State. We read that in the news last night, saw it back in the morning, and the number is unspecified for now. But how is this affecting the educational system, especially in the northern part of Nigeria?
Yeah, it's affecting them very greatly. The north, for example, education itself is something that they are almost being forced to do because a large number, an average northerner would rather either be with the cattle or be elsewhere than being in school. So the few who are being in school, these attacks are making it not encouraging for education to thrive in those cities, and that's a big one for this country as a whole. Because if we want to continue as one unit, we should ensure that every part of the country has that avenue to be equally developed. And education is the bedrock or the foundation for developments to thrive. So that's key. And once people are afraid of going to school and staying back at home or staying somewhere else, then that sector will be greatly affected. And in the near future, those are compounding issues that we would have in the future if people are not given the opportunity to be educated. Yes, some may not, but the few that desire to be educated, the schools should be safe enough for them to go to and receive education. And it's a duty of the state to ensure that every citizen in that state is protected adequately from any harm or evil whatsoever. And so that's a great lacuna in part. And so, yes, there are talks of, there's an attack has been foiled. Yes, kudos, but more can still be done. There's a lot left to be desired. Even within Lagos, we hear of thefts, of armed robbery almost every day. So the African is not even safe in the country. So there should be more. There's a lot that still needs to be done in that. But I look at it from a broader perspective. It's not just looking at it from the middle point of, yes, people are, but what is causing them to do that? And the one is when you see that the security system is lax, is not as effective. And then two is the issue of unemployment is really on the rise. And when people do not have means to feed themselves, they look for whatever avenues to do to feed themselves. And those are the issues that we keep on having. So let's look at it from a bigger point of view, not just from the narrow point of view.
Okay, there are two major points that I've picked here, which we're supposed to even talk about. Traffic robbery. Guardian reported about the Lagos State have suspects, about 127 suspects of traffic robbers, you know. And so when we say people in school are being abducted and people in traffic are being abducted, and now you mentioned that unemployment and, you know, those kind of factors can be the reason why security is going up. But we have a report here with IMF saying Nigeria's economy is gradually recovering. And if this is a report coming from, you know, IMF, that we're gradually recovering and unemployment is still on the rise, isn't this a bit disturbing?
It's not disturbing. Yes, it's possible. Like, for example, one can be, if one is sick and then one is, just using the analogy, and one is recovering, one may not feel well, but one may be recovering. So probably you're looking at your pulse and say, okay, yes, the person is recovering, but you may not be yet feel well. So probably that's where we are. Because I don't think the average Nigerian on the street is seeing that you are recovering. Because things are getting worse, things are getting more expensive, people are finding it more difficult to eat. And so I don't think the average Nigerian is feeling that impact of this said improvement. But possibly if we sustain the momentum and things get better, then it can go on for the average Nigerian to feel it. But as at now, I do not think the average Nigerian is feeling the said improvement in our economy.
We'll still go back to insecurity issues because we now have federal government shortlisting some states for to pilot grazing reserves. But you said if we maintain the momentum, I'm interested in this kind of results.
If we maintain momentum of the good that we are occurring, but the possibility is difficult for an average Nigerian to see the good in the momentum. That's one sincere truth we tell ourselves. But if we are able to do things to make things better, then we'll see it. And you mentioned on the grazing reserves and all that, whether that would lead to whether that would be better for the country as a whole and to solve the farmer other crisis. One thing I keep saying is that it is very difficult to say that should be that would end it. Because one is that I can always say we are not the leading producers of either hides and skin or milk in the world. And so why is that aspect causing so much tension and friction for a large number of people? And so that's what we should really look out for. And then yes, is that many of the states that did not grant access to lands for grazing is because of the fear that they have. Many of those states fear that if the others come to their states and occupy the grazing areas, that with time they could expand. And then if there's an issue in that state, there's a possibility of a conflagration coming out from that spot.
Yes, the fears are there. And even if it's just 21 states out of 36 years that we have, the fears are there. And you mentioned an observation. We're not the highest producers of hide and skin. But isn't there need for diversification in our industry? We're saying that we should not depend solely on petroleum resources in terms of exporting petrol or in terms of having that as the only means of our natural, resources to boost our economy. Isn't this a form of, boosting the economy if we say let our grazing reserves work, let our, let the cattle and the ranches work? Isn't this going to help our economy?
It's very difficult to say yes or no to your question. One is that we're looking at what will help the economy is if there is peace and security.
All right.
And if there are other things that will make the environment enabling. But if there is more tension, then it will be more detrimental. So that's what we should look out for. And then, yes, if people is one thing for a government to have a plan, it's another thing for the people to accept that plan. So that balance is one thing they have to watch out for.
Right.
And yes, grazing reserves, yes, it could be a good idea in the long run if it's manageable because of that underlying fear. So let those fears and tensions be drowsed first. Before it look like a position, and if the hostility between the areas where the others are and local communities, then that will be a cause for more tension, more insecurity, and it will be worse off. So it should make people buy into that idea first, and then see how to expand it. But the issues are much more than just the grazing reserves or not. The issue is much more than that. It's more of there are a number of other excellent issues there. One is the issue of climate change. Okay. And then, so in the northern part of the country, there is less and less grasses for their cattle to eat. So that's why the migration is coming downwards. And so it's to see how can we ensure that in that part of the country, there is afforestation. Can we have irrigation systems? Can we make sure that things are there? So if you put infrastructure there, there will be no need for them to come downwards, and there will be none of these issues. You're supposed to think beyond just saying you want to develop ranches for them here. Yes, you can have enough ranches there, and then they can be exporting or bringing it down to the south. That's also an alternative. So you need not have it around the country before you are able to say that you are making progress. Because if there's tension between the communities and the settlements, then there will still be issues, and it will not still lead to that economic development we are looking for.
Okay, you raised the point, a salient point. That's climate change.
Exactly.
Now, their climate and the way their weather is in the north is absolutely different from what is going on in the south.
Yeah.
And when you raise that point, which is a question I like to ask my guests, is we've talked about what the federal government can do. That's, try to build infrastructures in the northern part. We talked about what, the states can do and to make sure that there's peace between the settlement and the headers. Yeah. But let's also talk about what the individuals can do. We've seen different forms of insecurity that we've talked about today, the abduction in schools, traffic robbery. What can we do as individuals, to foster peace and unity in our environment?
And honestly and candidly, Nigeria is a very religious country. So the first thing you have to do is to pray for safety. That's a practical reality. So that's the first thing. So, but much more than that is for us to be more aware of our environment.
All right.
And then if you see something, say something. But the challenge that people often have, like I said, so it's a multifaceted issue. You can't say there's a limit what the individuals can do.
All right.
And the most important thing is if there is a stance of the government, or the stance of the state against these things, then it's easier for everything to move. Okay. But when you see that stance is not there, and for example, when the governor of the state is saying, wind up your glasses and be more security conscious, you know that it's like he's throwing his hands up in the air. If there's a strong stance to say that we stand against this criminality, and that stance is there, then people can be boldened to do things. But when you have your governor pretty much saying, my hands are tied, then there's a definite cause for concern from the average Nigerian to say, yes, my security is virtually in God. Okay. But much of that is for one to see how best to secure himself, try to live as low a profile as you can. Don't be flamboyant or show enough so that you don't attract individuals to yourself, bad elements to yourself. Try to be safe, and wherever you are, make sure that you don't stay out at night unless it's very necessary. And even like that, let somebody know where you are going to at every point in time. Have a friend or somebody to know where you are at every point in time. Be safety and security conscious and be prayerful.
Okay, just in one word as we wrap it up this morning on this conversation, are you insisting that the state governors should come out to let the people know their position on these security issues before they make a move?
Sure. No, that's one. When a state governor has a strong stance against it, he emboldens his operatives to know that yes, we have the political backing to do these things. Because one thing for you to, for example, there are some states where whenever there's a farmer other clash, and you arrest a party, take them to police station, and the policeman just says okay, and this one, and then does not do what it's meant to do, and then you just sends everybody away, or tell everybody to go away, and then that sense of there's no one force to report to comes there, and that leads to other issues that may arise.
Thank you very much for giving us your views this morning.
You're welcome.
Really do appreciate your time.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. And that's where we end it on the newspaper review this morning. If you are watching us, if you just joined us, well, that's where we wrapped it up on the review this morning. You can catch up with details of some of the stories we've had there on the 3 p.m. news and also on the 9 p.m. bulletin. Like I always tell you on the newspaper review, please stay safe, maintain safety protocols wherever you're watching us from, especially in Africa with the latest number of COVID-19 cases and death toll. But till I see you again, my name is Esther Kalu. To stay safe.